about African art, and so I kind of had previous knowledge, so I thought it would be easier. So in Benin, which is where Olanda Equiano was stolen from, they were known for their art and metallurgy, and they would trade their work with other African kingdoms such as Songhai, who would trade it again. And in Egypt, they had hieroglyphics, which was a kind of art, and their graves were decorated with pictures of the gods and such, which was also art. During the time of slavery in the U.S., while there were no schools that taught slaves to paint, some white families would privately tutor them. These families were usually abolitionists. Many others expressed themselves through quilting. Joshua Johnson was the son of a slave woman and her master. He was also a slave, but he was freed, and he is often acknowledged as the first person of color to make a living off painting. He was called the first American artist of African descent to create a sizable body of work of high quality by Romare Beard and 6 black American artists. Edward Mitchell Bannister was a landscape artist from Rhode Island. He was the first black artist to win a national award that recognized his talent of first place at the Philadelphia Exposition in 1876, but he was unable to accept it because he wasn't allowed entrance to this ceremony due to his race. During the Harlem Renaissance, a lot of black artists came out, but I'm only going to talk about the artist ones instead of the poets and stuff. Meta Vo Warwick Fuller used her work to change the status of race. She was the first black American artist to focus on African-inspired themes after the white students at her school in Paris refused to share a room with her. Well, I guess she wasn't really the first black American artist to focus on that, but she called attention to it, which was different. Jacob Lawrence painted visuals around Harlem. He showed black people working, sewing, walking, etc. What he did that was special was that he laid out all his canvases and painted every one color down the line. So he did multiple artworks in one day this way. Augusta Savage was a sculptor during the Harlem Renaissance. Her most famous sculpture was a 16-foot visual representation of James Weldon Johnson's poem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. She also worked as a teacher and worked for equal rights for African Americans in the arts. Now black artists have their own abstract, modern, or classical styles. Still, race is brought into their works and achievements. And that's the end of this, but it is not the end of black art.
Well, I thought your presentation was excellent. You articulated well, you set up nicely, you had good poise, you knew your subject matter. I think it was fairly well, it was well organized. I would have liked for you to have spent a little bit more time in Africa, but that's okay. You brought us right up to the 19th century and the 20th century pretty quickly. But you did go back to Egypt, which was quite good. I'm very happy you brought in Olanda Equiano, something you learned from class, and that you identified that with African art in his particular country. And well done. Well done. Comments? Comments? Other comments? Yes, ma'am.
I really liked the fact that you went back really far back to art. I thought that was really cool because I learned a lot about the stuff that you talked about. I was going to say something else, but I don't remember what it was. But yeah, I think you did a really good job. Yeah.
Other comment? Wait a minute, sit down, Miss Anna. Don't go anywhere. Yes, ma'am.
I like how you talk about artists in the Harlem Renaissance that we don't know about, because usually you hear of, like W.E.B. Du Bois and Zora Neale Hurston, and the people that you mentioned I've never heard about. So I thought that was pretty good.
That was important because her topic was visual, black visual artists. Unfortunately, we think of the Harlem Renaissance mostly as literature and music, and it really was not. It was partly that, but the visual arts, Aaron Douglas, the visual artists in the Harlem Renaissance were significant. Very significant. I was happy you went into slavery. Like Miss Gaston with dance, enslaved persons perform much art all the time, and sometimes their dance had to be quiet, which is what the ring shout is all about. You're dancing quietly because the master didn't want you to dance. They didn't want black people to be all celebratory in the slave quarters, so they had to. Where you get this from? That is drumming without drums. That's what that is. That's why they did that. They do, stepping, when you do your stepping shows and all that. They do that as a result of they couldn't do it loudly with drums because they wouldn't let them. So they did it quietly on their knees and on their feet. And all the hand stuff that you guys do.
That's what I was gonna say. I like the fact that you brought up quilting, because a lot of people don't really see that as an art, and it is.
Speak up.
I said I like the fact that she brought up quilting because a lot of people don't see that as an art, and it actually is.
There's an African-American lady in Washington named Sandy Hassan who does marvelous quilting of African American and African scenery. And she's a major quilter today. This quilting was an important art form in the 19th century among African American women. Indeed. Other comments? I'm very pleased that anybody, who's next? Anybody else want to go next? Anybody?
I think that's it.
I'm very pleased that you all are going back to Africa, okay? If there's something you're going to learn from this course is everything starts in Africa. Whether it's music or literature or art or politics or whatever, food, cuisine, it goes back to Africa. And we're all Africans, every single one of us, including me. No, I have an African gene. How do you think I got here? I didn't get here. We all start in Africa. We start in East Africa, and then we move around. Move to the north, move to the south, move to the west. But it all comes from Africa. So you're all doing good with that. Keep that in mind.